Heated Rivalry was on my list of shows to watch since it first got put on my radar. I knew I was going to love it. It reminded me a lot of Yuri on Ice, which is a BL I absolutely adored, and I'm still so sad we don't have a second season. I really enjoy romance as a genre, but I especially enjoy it when it's mixed with something we can connect to alongside the romance story, like a Heated Rivalry, for example. Hockey and Canadian culture, competition. I also love when the romance part has a unique element that makes it feel fresh and makes it stand out amongst all the BL I've consumed in the past. I think a years-long secret situationship between famous hockey rivals really does that for me. So today I'm going to talk about my thoughts about the show, some of the discourse surrounding it. So spoiler warning now for season 1 of Heated Rivalry. If you like media deep dives, I guess that is one half of my content now, so subscribe for more of that, please. And on with our gay hockey show. Admittedly, I was a little late, even though, like I said, I always intended to watch it. I was sick, okay, and busy, and honestly, there are a lot of good shows on my list. Ever since Wednesday played, and probably even before that, it felt like I would end a show and another one I really wanted to watch would come out. Stranger Things Season 5, which, don't come for me, I actually enjoyed it. Okay, my brother was super hyped for Fallout, so I watched that too. Quick note, I'm actually working on a Fallout script, so let me know if you're interested in that. And The Pit, that I can think of off the top of my head. It honestly feels like we've been getting fed really good TV lately. Like, we are being spoiled. I don't know if anyone else agrees. But as soon as I went to my friend's bachelorette party, Heated Rivalry was on everyone's lips. It was the main topic of the entire night. And I realized that almost all of my friends had already watched it. And so it went up in queue. Even my lesbian friends would not stop talking about it. And then on top of that, all my IRL friends had already watched it. They were losing their minds. And that's how deeply the show had already embedded itself into my real life before I even pressed play. And honestly, that's part of why I wasn't planning to make a long form video about it. I made some shorts because I feel like I wanted to have something. But I thought, what more is there to say that hasn't already been said? People have talked about whether straight women are allowed to watch it. All angles of this debate has been already addressed. Ofi Dofi made a great video on that, and I would personally recommend watching that. People have already talked a lot about the way fans and the media try to force actors to come out, how harassment follows queer media every single time, and how it's never okay. People have talked about fandom entitlement and boundaries, and all that is important. It keeps coming up because it keeps happening, and I've been in fandom for a very long time. I'm often an advocate for fans and even shippers, but this has just been a known thing. Some fans are weird, and I do think we should call that out, but again, plenty of people have been doing that already. There's also the whole Empty Netters podcast drama. If you don't know, Empty Netters is a hockey podcast that got really popular for reacting to Heated Rivalry and praising it publicly. And then private texts were leaked from one of the hosts where he called the show trash, said it was pandering, provocative, just checking inclusivity boxes, and even referred to the people who made it as cowards, which is a lot. The full context and the awful texts are covered by D'Angelo, which I again would recommend watching that video for the full story. The only part around that I will add is that it shows how easily queer media gets dismissed as pandering instead of being taken seriously as art. Or even romance in general is dismissed in arts and seen as lesser, but that could be a whole video on its own. D'Angelo kinda talked about how we shouldn't be surprised, and in my opinion, he does raise a fair point. These are straight white men. The hockey world is still deeply misogynistic and homophobic. We know that. Also, there's been questionable stuff in the past with the podcast host that he covers. Again, I'm pretty sure that all gets covered in his video, so go check that out. But you know, you also understand why people were disappointed, right? Because we want people to be better. We want to find some good ones. We want to believe growth is possible. We want hope. So all of this is to say, I told myself I wasn't going to make a long video, even though, you know, I'm Canadian. This is my media. I think that's part of why this hit me so hard. We don't often get to export queer stories that feel this confident, polished, and this unapologetic. We usually import them. So seeing something from here resonate so globally feels special, but I didn't think I had anything new to add. And then I was talking with a friend and I realized I actually had a lot I wanted to say. Even if it's been said before, sometimes it still matters to say it in your own voice, I think. First of all, I'm not gonna pretend that Canada is a perfect country, even a little bit. But in this instance, I am a little bit proud that we have a government-funded BL series. And not only that it became internationally successful. That is huge. My friend even told me when we were talking that in her Chinese BL circles, people were hesitant at first. They weren't sure about a Canadian BL. They didn't know what to expect. And then they watched it and they were like, oh, this is actually really good. I think that matters a little bit. That kind of cultural crossover. And the very fact that this show is government backed feels especially powerful right now when so many governments are actively working against queer people and queer representation. To have a government say, yeah, we're funding this story, that's a statement, right? I also love that a gay man, Jacob Turney, is at the helm of the show. This is a queer gay story made by a gay man. This circles back to that podcast criticism about wanting a real hockey show because, dude, he already made one. Shorzy exists. Jacob Tierney is the director and also executive producer of Shorzy, which is another Canadian show about a struggling senior AAA level ice hockey team. But instead of recognizing that, some people are too busy tearing him down to even know his work, I guess. And I really respect how he defended and respected the original author, Rachel Reed, from whom the story was adapted. Because as Ophi pointed out, so many BL authors get harassed, forced to come out, or dismissed as straight women fetishizing gay men. A lot of the actors who star in these type of shows are. This isn't even accurate most of the time. Many of these authors aren't straight, and some aren't even women. He's also protective as hell of these new actors and shutting down questions about their sexualities in interviews right away. I saw someone online make an interesting point about someone else who was concerned about heterosexual actors taking roles and taking advantage in these situations. And again, I do understand the concern and the issues that go into this worry, but I feel like this type of rhetoric is not only going to lead to actors feeling pressured or being forcefully outed against their will, but as this person online pointed out, Jacob Tierney is there. He's part of the gay rep here, and they argued maybe even more important rep because his experiences and influences are injected into the show. But what people really want is a hot, sexy young guy for the rep who looks good without a t-shirt. I mean, Jacob could look good shirtless too. I don't know, I haven't actually seen it. Speaking about looking good shirtless, I also really appreciate that Heated Rivalry didn't shy away from being spicy. It didn't sanitize itself. It gave us desire and intimacy and messiness. And it also gave us heart. It gave us emotional depth. And I love that we can have both. This is where I push back on the idea that queer media has to look one way. Heartstopper, for example, is a show that is soft and gentle and way less explicit, and it's beautiful. Heated Rivalry is hotter and heavier, and it's beautiful. I want both. I think both has its place and is important and is valuable. I want all the queer stories. I want that range because all of these stories are true, right? Like, these are telling stories about queer lives, and that makes up all these different aspects of queer culture and who we are, you know? And we're not ending either of these stories in tragedy. These are happy, heartfelt love stories with happy endings and no bury your gays trope, even though the stories are executed at different ends of the spicy spectrum. And I am going to say it, I'm glad that this show got popular. I know some people wanted it to stay small and safe and out of the mainstream gaze, and I get that instinct again, but also it's a Canadian show. That's good for my country. I'm allowed to be a little proud. And what really gets me is who it reached. This didn't just stay inside BL spaces. It crossed into hockey fandoms. It reached people who don't usually watch queer romance. It reached people who might have never clicked on something like this on their own. That kind of crossover is rare and it's powerful. That's how culture and people actually shift and change. I know that firsthand. And it did that without queerbaiting. No will they, won't they dragged on for years. No subtext games, no half commitment. It trusted its audience from the start and said, yes, this is a queer love story. We're not hiding it. We're not softening it. We're not apologizing for it. And look what happened. I want every studio and showrunner who queerbaited us for years to look at this and feel a little bit of regret. Look at what happens when you actually commit. Look at how successful real representation actually is. Because part of what makes this so powerful is that you can tell they didn't expect it to get this big. And it did anyway. It proved people wrong. That's so satisfying. I really hope it actually changes things. It feels like a proof of concept, like a door opening instead of a one-off miracle. It's something that I really hope makes studios and networks stop and go, oh, there's real demand here. We've been leaving money, art, and impact on the table. I want this moment for people to point to later and say, that's when things started shifting. I've already been eating up all the pieces about hockey players being brave enough to finally come out because of this show. I feel like even if that is the only change or impact we get, I am so glad that it happened. I'm also genuinely happy for smaller teams seeing this level of success. I hope they get paid well. I hope they get more opportunities. I hope they get the bag they deserve. The main leads apparently quit their restaurant jobs to film it. You know, this is a big deal. I've already seen this article talking about the merch deal for the show, which, as far as I can tell from the language being used, seems like a big deal. Heated Rivalry has taken the world by storm like few other small budget shows in recent memory, and that includes in the world of merchandise. Since the show launched in November, most of the official merchandise products have already sold out. It's good news for stars Hudson Williams and Connor Story, along with other cast members who will reportedly receive profits from products that use their images. The move is rare in the film and television industry, where production companies or studios traditionally own the intellectual property tied to the product. But according to the Globe and Mail, Jacob Turney and Brendan Brady, executive producers and co-presidents of the Accent Agu Entertainment, AAE, wanted the actors to be compensated for the use of their likeness. And can we talk about the woman in this show? I already made a short kind of touching on this, but BL is kind of notorious for erasing women or turning them into awful villains. And here we had Elena, Svetlana, Yuna, Rose, Maria. All of them are so warm. They're so supportive. They're beautiful, kind, and they were important to the story. They really mattered. I mean, still side characters, yes, but treated with care and respect. And I don't know. I'm interested in what other people think, but it felt different to me. Like, it felt pretty intentional. And finally, this is maybe like a small part of it, but I get such a kick out of the main actors. I've been watching a lot of their interviews lately, and it's so funny to me how they seem to play the opposite of who they are in real life. The interviews have been so fun. It shows how strong their acting is. The chemistry between them was very convincing. The team around the show really feels like something special, both on and off the screen in so many ways. So it's very fair to say that I am a big fan of the show. I wish them all the support and all the success, and I'm so excited for season 2. Not to get really deep and serious in a video going over my thoughts about, you know, the fun little gay hockey show, but you know what I'm talking about. I truly think that in this day and age, with so much going around in the world, media that is queer, that is fun, that is weird, that is unapologetic, is so important. Pushing back and living our lives and still enjoying and creating media like this, even in the face of grief and loss and fear, is not useless. I think it matters more than ever. And I guess that's the note that I'll end on today. Bye. Stay weird and stay safe.